Hello，大家好，我係 Sam Wong，香港代表隊教練。今年係中國香港賽艇協會嘅40週年，我特別為大家做咗一個嘅訪談節目，訪問喺過去40年嚟幫我哋協會做咗好多貢獻嘅會員。第一輯我哋訪問 Mr. Mike Tanner 鄧麗先生，佢會為我哋講解下有關過去40年嚟協會嘅發展。
Mr. Tanner，請問你幾時嚟到香港
I knew someone who applied for a job with Hong Kong government at that stage and decided that sounded pretty good. So I applied and was offered a job. So I arrived in November 1974.
你喺咩嘅時候開始划艇呢種運動嘅呢？
Yeah, no, I'd been rowing since I was 15 at school. I rowed at school, then I rowed for a club in Tasmania, in Australia. I rowed for Tasmania once in the what they call the King's Cup Regatta as a spare in the Coxless Pair. So I'd rowed for many, many years before I came to Hong Kong.
當你嚟到香港工作，你點樣再開始划艇嘅訓練
When
呢？
I arrived in Hong Kong, the first thing to do was to find whether there was a rowing club, and I found the Royal Hong Kong Yacht Club. They were the only club at that stage. So I joined the yacht club and immediately took up rowing.
喺嗰個年頭，你點解萌生咗要建立一個香港嘅划艇總會呢？
At that stage, the yacht club was the only club. After 1 or 2 years, the police also formed a club, although most of them were members of the yacht club rowing section as well. And there was a lot of competition overseas in the Far Eastern Amateur Rowing Association, the Fiara regattas. They were inter-club regattas around Asia, mostly East Asia. That was the extent of the international competition in Asia at that time. Then I joined a Hong Kong police crew to go to race in UK. And when we came back from that, it was clear that if Hong Kong was going to have representative teams overseas, then we would need to have an international presence, and that meant forming a rowing association in Hong Kong.
香港業餘划艇協會係乜嘢嘅時候成立呢？
The association was founded in May 1978, 40 years ago this year, which is the 40th anniversary. It coincided with the same year that I got married, so I've got my 40th wedding anniversary this year as well. So I think I'm married to the Rowing Association as well as my wife.
協會成立初期嘅時候，主要係喺香港邊一度進行活動嘅呢？有乜嘢嘅屬會係喺嗰個時候成立㗎？
When the association was formed, it was we started our activities from Middle Island at the yacht club premises, and we were able to use the yacht club facilities there for some time. We bought our first boat, named the Sir David Trench. It was a Cox 4, paid with money from the Sir David Trench Fund. We rowed from there, rowed from Middle Island. We introduced crews from the Hong Kong University and also the Sports Association for physically handicapped people at that stage, and they all learned to row at Middle Island.
點解當時會選擇沙田發展第一個嘅划艇中心呢？
If the association was really to bring rowing to the general public, we needed to have premises of our own in a convenient location, and it became clear with all the reclamation that was happening at that time in Sha Tin that the future Shing Mun River would be an ideal 2,000-metre rowing course. In addition, the Jubilee Sports Centre was then being set up, and we thought that a venue adjoining the Jubilee Sports Centre, as it was at that stage, these days the Hong Kong Sports Institute, together with the ideal water situation from the Shing Mun River, that will be the best place to have a rowing centre. It also in future, of course, coincided with the Fortan railway station, so very convenient for public transport.
協會喺始創嘅初期，得力於好多行業嘅專才，佢哋嘅參與對協會發展有乜嘢嘅影響呢？
Yeah, I think that was very helpful because it allowed us to design buildings and to design the new rowing centre, to run the projects for the development, and to structure the future of the association in an experienced and professional way. But I think that the key thing to it all was all of these people were experienced rowers, had enjoyed rowing, and had benefited significantly from rowing throughout their lives, and they were all willing to put something back into it. So combining the rowing experience together with their professional careers, I think these were the two things that allowed the Rowing Association to start up and then to thrive.
可以為我哋介紹一下當年嘅始創會員係有邊幾位？
the founder members of the association. To start, people like Bob Wilson, Russell Black, David Sorton, Paul Witterson, Richard Linning, many of whom are no longer in Hong Kong, of course, but they were central to the establishment.
除咗協會嘅始創成員之外，當時仲有乜嘢嘅人士支持咗我哋蛙艇嘅發展呢？
We had outside the association, we had discussions with people, of course, like Mr. Adio Salas, who at that stage was the president of the Sports Federation Olympic Committee. People like Norman Wee, who was in government and was responsible at one stage for the Recreation and Sports Service. And of course, a number of people at that stage in the district office in Sha Tin, at the original Jubilee Sports Centre. Many different people that supported the idea of the association and allowed us to actually form it and develop it.
會喺始創嘅階段做咗好多宣傳同埋發展嘅工作，包括編寫咗第一份嘅發展大綱，同埋定期嘅香港蛙艇刊物。當時嘅工作喺發展蛙艇起咗乜嘢嘅作用呢？
Yeah, when we first formed the association, we recognised that rowing was not a sport which was understood within the community and even within the jockey club, within the business community and within government. And that we recognised the need for us to promote rowing and to promote what the association was planning to do. So we did it in two ways. We first of all wrote a development plan which we distributed to government, to corporate, to the jockey club, to in fact we sent a questionnaire to all the secondary schools in Hong Kong at one stage, over 400 schools, and used the response from those questionnaires as part of the development plan. We also started to produce Hong Kong Rowing, which was in the beginning a black and white magazine, maybe only 8 pages to 10 pages in the beginning, but really giving us an opportunity to promote what the Rowing Association was doing to all of those influential people in the community, including jockey club, government and corporate, so that we could establish a baseline for the future development and future support. The Hong Kong Rowing was a very good way to get our message across to all the people in the community that we wanted to influence in applying for land for the rowing centre, for the community, for funding for the new rowing centre, etc.
協會為咗喺沙田進行蛙艇活動，除咗爭取興建沙田蛙艇中心嘅前期，同時亦都變成咗臨時嘅蛙艇中心。你可以講解一下當時嘅情況係點樣嘅？
The temporary boathouse was built in 1982 and it was just adjoining the Fortune Nullah, and we had a small temporary pontoon which stretched out into the river. The government gave us the land on a short-term tenancy and the jockey club paid for it. I think it cost $400,000 to build. It was only a tin shed, but it was all we needed at that stage. We had boats which were provided by some by Sir David Trench Fund, some by the Hong Kong Bank Foundation, and so we started off in a very small way, but still in a very enthusiastic way, with a very clear vision of where we wanted the association to expand to in the future. The Sha Tin Rowing Centre sits on a site where the original floating restaurant was in Sha Tin. And when we built the temporary centre, the floating restaurant was still there. But while we were actually building the temporary centre, we had already applied to the government for land for a private recreational lot on the site of the car park of the floating restaurant. The government had plans to move the floating restaurant anyway because of pollution and other issues, and we eventually succeeded in applying for that land, and we applied also to the Jockey Club at the same time for funding to build the existing Sha Tin Rowing Centre. Over that period we moved our rowing championships to Sha Tin. We continued to hold regattas out there. The new rowing centre was opened, I think, in 1985 to coincide with the first Asian Rowing Championship, which Hong Kong hosted.
協會喺沙田嘅兩所蛙艇中心都係由香港賽馬會慈善基金支持建成嘅。你對佢哋嘅支持有乜嘢嘅評價呢？
The Jockey Club has been the key to us being where we are, the key to rowing in Hong Kong, I think. When we first started, as I say, they gave us the money, the funding for the temporary centre. Then they provided the funding for the Sha Tin Rowing Centre, and then 15 years later or so, provided the money for the Jockey Club Sek Mun Centre. that was critical. Government gave us the land, but the Jockey Club gave us the money. Without that, we would not have been able to be where we are today. And I think that I hope that the Jockey Club can look back on their investment at that stage in the sport of rowing and be very, very satisfied as to what they have enabled us to create. The many, many thousands of university students and school students, many other people who have been involved in rowing in that time have all been part of what essentially was a Jockey Club program because of their provision of the centres that enabled us to do it. We could never have done it if we were just relying on government water sports centres. We had to have the premises of our own. They had to be in Sha Tin on flat water facilities, and the Jockey Club enabled us to do that.